This is the 2021 Mercedes-Benz G400d, and basically it's the Singer 911 of the off-road world. Singer is the brilliant Californian company that takes old 964 911s and then completely transforms them by re-engineering everything underneath and on the inside. That's exactly what Mercedes has done with this second generation G-Wagen. On the outside, it's still fantastically faithful to the original design, which has been around since 1979. But as we'll see in this video, underneath and on the inside, this car is a completely different animal. So what we're going to do in this video, I'm going to have a look around the outside, look at that iconic exterior design, jump inside and look at the modern interior, and then go for a drive to see if this G400d variant is actually a smarter buy compared to the unhinged G63. Before all that though, if you like this video, scroll up and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions about the G400d, dive into the comments below. Before we get into it, I want to start with my favorite detail about the G-Wagen, and that's what it sounds like when you unlock the door and then close the door. Have a listen to this. Oh, anybody who loves ASMR is going to appreciate that. It kind of sounds like you're closing the door on a prime mover or something. It's so mechanical. It's such a G-Wagen trademark. I absolutely love it. And interestingly, the locks on this door are one of the few parts that have actually carried over to this second generation. There's only a handful of those parts. So it's the locks, the washer nozzles, the sun visor, and the spare wheel cover. That's all that's carried over. Everything else on this car is brand new. As I mentioned earlier, the G-Wagen has been around since 1979, and it's a true icon in the off-road world. It's right up there with things like the Land Rover Defender for having a cult-like following. But amazingly, it wasn't until 2018 that Mercedes-Benz gave it a complete overhaul. So this is the second generation in more than 40 years. This second generation is roomier, it's wider, it's got more sophisticated double wishbone front suspension, but visually, only train spotters are going to be able to tell the difference between this car and the old one. It's interesting actually, because unlike the Land Rover Defender, which has been completely overhauled and modernized for its latest generation, Merc's designers have stayed really faithful to the original boxy design in the G-Wagen. Now this actual car is the G400d. It's the second variant of the new G-Class to be offered in Australia after the bonkers G63. The G63 has a 4-litre twin-turbo V8 and it costs $290,000, but the G400d has a 3-litre turbo diesel and it starts at $233 grand. So a fair chunk cheaper than a G63, but this is still a very expensive car. Right, how it looks on the outside. The first thing I need to mention is this paint. There are 8 colours to choose from as standard and a whole host more on the options list, but this colour is a standard colour. It's emerald green. It looks absolutely fantastic. Most of the time, it actually looks black, but when the sun catches it, that's when it turns this beautiful dark green. As for the rest of the exterior, well, it's still unmistakably a G-Wagen, isn't it? We get iconic touches like these lights on top of the bonnet, but some of the sharp edges of the original are now a little bit softer. And this second generation car is much bigger than before as well. It's 53 millimeters longer, but a massive 121 millimeters wider. It has loads of street presence. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Getting lots of standard equipment as well. LED headlights are standard with the iconic circular design. More iconic exterior touches include this protective strip which runs along the entire side of the car. It breaks here for the door handle. I like that little design touch. G400 versions also get a sunroof as standard in Australia. These wing mirrors are automatically folding, and in Australia we also get something called the stainless steel exterior package as standard on the G400d. That adds some silver exterior design touches like your side steps and also the cover for the spare wheel well out there. Second row and the rear glass is also privacy glass on the G400, that's standard. As for alloy designs, the wheels are 19 inches as standard, a nice 8-spoke design. Very simple design, but I really like it. The tyres are Scorpion Zeros from Pirelli that measure 275, 55 R19s. There are some more iconic design touches around the back. This is the spare wheel cover, which I mentioned before. That's the silver finish. And tucked in behind it is a wiper for the rear glass, neatly disguised behind there. The alloy itself behind there is a full-size alloy, so that's a handy feature, especially for an off-road vehicle like this one, where you actually probably will use that spare wheel at some point. Other things to point out are we've got some parking sensors integrated into the rear bumper there. They're also at the front as well. Another iconic touch is, of course, the side-hinged tailgate. And when you open that up, you expose a pretty big boot, actually. The boxy shape of the car means it's very, very easy to use. It's pretty well appointed. We get a nice, durable plastic cover for your boot floor, so if you chuck mucky, wet things in there like a dog, it's not going to ruin your $233,000 G-Wagen's carpet. Couple of lights. We've got a 12-volt socket as well, and also a parcel shelf. And tucked in here, sort of tied down with these Velcro straps, is a net which you can put up into the roof so things aren't going to fly into the cabin if you're doing some serious off-roading. It's a pretty big boot, but maybe not quite as large as you might imagine given the size of this car. 454 litres is actually less than you get in something like a Toyota RAV4. But like I said before, the boxy design means it's actually pretty practical to use. Another place where there is more room than you might expect, particularly compared with the original G-Wagen, is the actual cabin itself. So let's jump in there and have a look. Before that though, let's finish this section with another door closing sound. Love it. Interior comfort was a huge focus for Mercedes-Benz with this second generation G-Class. And honestly, when you jump inside, it just feels like the modern luxurious cabin of any other Mercedes-Benz SUV. There's very little to give away. The fact that we are in a hardcore off-roader, except of course there's a massive grab handle on the dash, which itself is finished in a very high-end material, and the iconic 3 buttons for the 3 locking differentials. But apart from that, it feels absolutely primo in here. The second thing you notice is the sense of space. The original G-Wagen, despite its size on the outside, was hopelessly cramped inside, but now we have way more room both in the front and especially in the back seat, but we'll get to that in a little bit. It feels very modern in here as well. We've got Merc's twin screen setup here, which takes up most of the dash. That combines 2 12.3-inch digital screens. The one in front of the driver is fully configurable, so you can change your display how you want it to be there. The one on the right shows heaps of useful information as well, but it is the command system, not Mercedes-Benz MBUX system, so it's not a touchscreen, but the system itself does work very, very well. The other thing worth mentioning is that the G400 gets a 15-speaker Burmeister sound system as standard. Sounds absolutely fantastic. Gave that a whirl on the way down here, and the finish on the speakers is really cool. It's like a razor from the 50s or something. We are getting loads of other standard equipment. The seats are leather trimmed, they're heated, they're electrically operated. The seating position is really good actually, because we're so upright and the windscreen is so upright as well. The whole car feels really, really boxy. Vision out is absolutely superb. Equipment, loads of it, as you'd expect from an SUV that costs $240,000. So we get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto as standard. It's wide in this car. We have a couple of USB ports tucked away in this central bin here. This is slightly where the no touchscreen option on this left-hand screen is a little bit annoying, but it's not a massive drama because you just use the dial here to go through the main functions. Other equipment highlights include an excellent 360-degree surround view camera. That's important in a car this big when you're trying to park it. The sunroof that I mentioned earlier, that slides, and also a tyre pressure monitoring system, which you'd expect given the off-road focus of this car. Safety-wise, this is a Mercedes-Benz, so you get in the usual raft of active safety systems. We've got adaptive cruise control, blind spot detection, traffic sign recognition, and also lane keep assist. In terms of spaces to put things, well, we've got 2 big cup holders here ahead of the command center, which will easily swallow my oversized water bottle and a takeaway coffee cup. And one of my favorite things is the slot for the key. Just tucks in there ahead of the cup holders, which is a useful feature so you don't lose your key, which I do all the time. Central bin, it's a decent size. It's not massive, won't swallow that. But you can put lots of useful things in there. The door bins themselves are also pretty big. They're nice and deep. Easily swallow my oversized water bottle and a couple of these takeaway coffee cups. But big items can be a little bit tricky to get out of because the actual door handle and the speaker down there is quite close. So that's something to be mindful of. The rest of the cabin though feels absolutely beautifully made. Material qualities are really, really high, all the way down to the lower plastics. They're still soft touch all the way down here for the door bins, which is very unusual actually. So the cabin feels really nicely screwed together. It feels modern. It feels very, very premium. Let's see if that continues into the second row. In the back, look, it's still not the world's roomiest second row, but it's certainly a big improvement on the old G-Wagen. This car has 150 millimeters more knee room. And as you can see, I'm sat behind my seating position. I am 6'3". I've got a good amount of knee room here. I've also got huge amount of toe room, and the seat itself is very comfortable. The bottom cushion has lots of under-thigh support, and given it's so boxy, these sills are so low, so vision out is absolutely fantastic. All three seats actually are pretty well catered for. There's not a huge transmission tunnel here. The floor is actually pretty flat. So the middle seat is, not a backward step either. You could fit 3 fully grown adults across here, no problem at all. Amenity-wise, again, the sense of quality and gear back here is very, very good. We've got our own climate control system for fan speed and temperature, 2 air vents in the middle, and another one here on the B-pillar, so ventilation is well catered for. The second row is also heated. I've got 3 stages for the heating for each of the seats back here. Storage-wise, I've got a little cubby down here with a USB socket down here, and also an actual cigarette lighter. I can't even remember the last time I saw an actual cigarette lighter in a car, but there you go. G-Wagen, old school. Couple of map pockets here as well. Central armrest in the central seat with massive cup holders actually. That's got so much room to move about, and that's a pretty big takeaway cup. It'll easily swallow my oversized water bottle as well. There we go. Door bins, again, a useful size, but getting stuff in there is a little bit tricky again because of the way the door is shaped, but once things are in there, it is a very useful cubby. Headroom, given this car is so boxy, I've got absolute miles of it. The second row is very comfortable. It's a very convincing place to sit actually, and you could not say that about the original G-Wagen. But if you think this whole cabin has taken a big leap forward, that's nothing compared to the improvement in the way that this second generation G-Wagen drives. My favourite comment about how the old G-Wagen drove came from Tobias Moores at AMG, the former boss of AMG. He told me that the old G63 didn't corner, didn't stop, but people absolutely loved it. And he was pretty bang on actually. It was very, very accurate because the old G-Wagen was very capable off-road, but on the road it felt pretty agricultural. But the good news is this new model is a huge improvement. Mercedes must have been very tempted to give this car more of an urban focus for its second generation, but authenticity and off-road ability have been core to this car's philosophy from the get-go. So it still rides on a ladder frame chassis. The overhangs are very, very short front and rear, so the approach and departure angles are very impressive. You get a 100-litre fuel tank, and it can weigh up to 700 millimeters. Plus, you can tow 3.5 tons, so that ability away from the beaten track is still very much there with this second generation car. We aren't going to be doing any off-roading today. If you want to see how this car performs off-road, our pals at 4x4 Australia have given it an off-road review, and we can put the link to that video up there. But what I'm interested in exploring today is the other side of the G-Wagen's personality, and that's how it performs on the public road. And the good news there is that there have been some really big improvements. So this car is now 170 kilograms lighter, and the rigidity of the chassis has been improved as well. So the body is 55% stiffer. The front suspension of the old car was a live beam setup, but now we have a pretty sophisticated and very compact double wishbone design up there. And instantly, as soon as you jump in the new G-Wagen, it feels way more car-like. The steering is a highlight. It feels instantly reassuring straight off center. There's none of the vagueness or waftiness that you got in the old car. And there's been a huge leap forward in road manners and refinement as well. The transformation is actually pretty incredible. Adaptive dampers are standard on Aussie cars, and initially the ride does feel very compliant. It breathes with the road, and there's a good sense of composure over bigger bumps especially. It's not quite as composed or as refined as a conventional SUV, which has a monocoque chassis, and sometimes you do still get the occasional ladder frame shudder through the car over bigger bumps. But consider what this car can do off-road, and how it performs on-road now is seriously impressive. So it's a G-Wagen that actually corners. And this engine in the G400d is an absolute peach of a thing. It's an absolute honey of a unit. So it's a 3-litre turbo diesel. Mercedes says it's actually the most powerful diesel it's ever fitted to a production car. And it is so smooth and refined. It's actually blowing me away how refined this engine is. And I reckon if you turn the engine on, you'd actually be hard pressed to tell that it's a diesel, because there's none of that rattliness that often plagues diesel engines in this class. Plenty of performance at our disposal as well. We've got 243 kilowatts. That's nothing to sniff at, but it's the 700 Newton meters that you drive the most. There's just torque everywhere. You kind of just drive this car on these huge waves of relentless torque, and the car always feels super muscular. There's plenty of straight line performance as well. The gearbox is Mercedes 9-speed G-Tronic, and officially Merc says this will go from 0 to 100 in 6.4 seconds. To put that number into context, it's exactly the same claim as a Volkswagen Golf GTI hot hatch. And remember, this car weighs 2.5 tons, but away from the lights, you'll give a hot hatch something to worry about. So as a package, the G-Wagen is now really impressive. It has a few drawbacks that come with the authenticity of having a ladder frame chassis, but you could easily live with this car every single day. The vision out is fantastic. The refinement and road noise is kept nicely in check on the freeway. When you consider what this car can do off-road and how it performs on-road now, it is a seriously impressive and polished package. As a road car, the G400 is seriously impressive. The way it stops, goes and steers is miles better than the original G-Wagen. And unless you absolutely need the ultimate performance of a G63, I reckon this car is the one to buy. Plus, despite all of its improvements on-road, it has retained its true authenticity off-road. It'll go pretty much wherever you point it. The only problem is Mercedes is going to sting you for the privilege. At $233,000, that car's about twice as expensive as a Land Rover Defender with a similar level of performance. But if you really want one, and I mean, it's got a cool factor that few cars can match, I think Mercedes has really nailed the combination of retro looks with a thoroughly modern interior and driving experience.